Welcome to Victoria Rumble Room, a show that likes to focus on things on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada, the wide world. And we do that on this program. We do it on clips that are on several platforms. If you like the clips, we recommend you watch our 15 minutes of fame that folds into all sorts of great interviews. And we've got some good ones for you today. I'm Robin Adair, and across town, we have the Croatian sensation himself, John Jurisic. And John, great to have you here.
Oh, hey, I'm glad to be here. I could be in water. I could be in frickin', stranded on some island in Saanich. So I'm here.
I've seen a lot of rain in my time. And to be very fair, we're lucky to live in a place like Victoria, which does get considerably less rain than other parts of Vancouver Island, let alone the lower mainland. So while we certainly saw a lot of rain over a couple of days, we didn't have near the flooding that they had just north of us, even on the Malahat. If you look at this video, here's some video of what things were looking like on the Malahat Highway, which was closed. And, you can imagine what that was like. And I understand Vancouver was locked in, where the only way you could get out of Vancouver to the rest of the country was to go through Washington State. So we were really cut off from the rest of the world because of this deluge of rain. And John, I hate to point fingers, but we have countries that are being irresponsible with the amount of dirt they're pouring into the atmosphere. I know a lot of fingers go to Alberta about our oil industry. We need to do something about mitigating the pollution from oil and gas. There's no two ways about it. But coal in places like China and India. Apparently in China, in one day, they push out more pollution from coal than the entire country of Ireland does in a year.
Come on. Robin, we talk about how our show is distributed here and there and everywhere. Climate change is everywhere. What we talk about here down the street, my little park is flooded. That's a global problem. And I'm really unsettled by what's happening in the other parts of BC. Because you can see families. Imagine this, you're driving.
They had to evacuate Merritt.
And you're right, they're driving, you get swept off the road and you're stuck in a ditch. Like the horror of that. And it's worse than ever. Like yesterday, we lived through the worst rainstorm ever. So climate change is upon us. It's real.
It's real, yeah.
And why some of these nations you referred to earlier are not changing their practices, I don't understand. We need to get folks on that can help us with that. But in the meantime, we're going to talk to a local leader who's transformed Lower Vancouver Island in sort of a municipal governance way, and that being Langford Mayor Stew Young. He's joining us in a few minutes. One of the most colorful civic politicians in the country. So it'll be fun to see how that goes, how that interview goes on. So lots to talk with Stew about. But first, I want to send out a shout out. To a local councillor, Victoria Councillor Charlene Thornton Joe. For the better part of 30 years, my family and I have been heading downtown for Canada Day. That is like a signature event for us, and to watch the fireworks. And we go through the insanity in front of Empress Hotel. It's almost like a ritual, a rite, And it's 60, 70,000 people show up for that. Now, last several years, we've not been able to because of this pandemic, right? And then it's been announced that next July 1st, there won't be a Canada Day celebration. Instead, there will be ceremonies to honor the children who died in our residential schools, which is absolutely necessary, absolutely needed to recognize that. However, even the First Nations aren't calling an end to Canada Day.
No, I think, John, that we need to honor our First Nations. Honoring of First Nations is part of reconciliation, but canceling fireworks on Canada Day is, I believe, going too far. This must be council's idea of reconciliation. Further to this, Mayor Helps and company are even considering giving an annual grant from new assessed revenue to the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, a grant that grows every year and eventually becomes a sizable part of the Victoria budget. Now, according to the mayor, this is a way to share the wealth with our First Nations. And I have no problem with fully supporting our First Nations. Give them tax breaks on their properties that are non-reserve and their businesses that are thriving but can always use more help. But our First Nations are not looking for handouts. They are looking for a hand up. That's what we should be lending them. And I think that Victoria, the province, the federal government can all do a lot more to empower our First Nations. And that would truly be a step in the right direction for reconciliation.
Actually, I couldn't agree with you more, Robin. Well said. Empowering local First Nations, assimilating, working, reconciliation, absolutely important towards all of us working together on Lower Vancouver Island. Hey, now, while we're talking about dealing with local government, Victoria civic government, I'd like to throw out a compliment to Police Chief Del Manick. He's been diplomatically pushing for the hiring of 6 new officers for the Victoria Esquimalt Force. He needs 100, as far as I'm concerned, to increase the force. Now he's inviting 20 new police officers to transfer us to Victoria, dangling $20,000 bonuses. Man, I want to become a policeman. No, that's such a positive incentive. It's hard to get police to come here. It's expensive. Downtown must be one of the toughest places to work in BC, but he's determined. Del Manick is determined, and that is so inspiring to see.
Yeah, Del Manick is a great leader for this community, and we wish him well. And we certainly need more police officers in downtown Victoria. So right on that, John. And now to another topic. The British Columbia government has announced deferrals of logging of ancient and old growth forests for across 26,000 square kilometers. And much of this disputed area is on Vancouver Island, some of it around, of course, the Ferry Creek area. And Catherine Conroy, the Minister of Forests, says that the First Nations will now have a month to consult on this. The First Nations themselves say a month. It's not nearly enough time. So already there's back and forth on that. BC is already protecting 3.5 million hectares of old growth. So will these new steps satisfy the protesters in Ferry Creek near Port Renfrew, where over 1,000 have been arrested to date? So far, they say they're not leaving their barricades. So what happens next? And what happens next in the forest industry as well? Jeff McWilliams is a registered professional forester. He's worked in that business and that industry for 30 years now, plus alongside industry and government. So we're going to find out more from our perspective of a forester about the future of this industry. Let's zoom Jeff in.
Public resource management is challenging, and so ultimately, I think the situation here is that you've got a classic case of what is in the majority interests of the public on something like this, and where is the best places to make decisions like this. And I'm concerned that this decision-making seems rushed and a bit ad hoc, and it is coming from more of a urban-based, populist-based political activism, as opposed to the opposite, which is where decisions are made closer to where the resource value trade-offs occur. And that would be more in the rural populations, local communities, First Nations, non-First Nations. And we've had a very good success, albeit torturously difficult to implement sometimes, to make those kind of trade-offs at that level. And I've found that most of those trade-offs have been well balanced because they do reflect where the rubber hits the road, where trade-offs have to be made and the pros and the cons of those decisions. I am very much uncomfortable from what I understand this process so far has been, that it's a top-down process and it's going to further the divide between rural and urban populations big time. And I live in North Vancouver, and I can tell you, talking to my family and friends here, they don't really understand the significance of the trade-offs that are involved. And I know that talking to my friends and colleagues in the rural communities, that these decisions are going to be devastating in certain areas, if not on a very wide basis.
Wow. Wow. Jeff, so great to hear your perspective. Obviously, from a professional, so many instances we hear from people who really don't do this kind of stuff. You do. Thank you. And your goals are to keep the forest industry in BC healthy and productive. With this new large area of old growth being protected, at least for the next 2 years, at least that's the intention. How is this going to impact the forest industry?
Well, I think it's difficult to say exactly, John. We don't have perfect inventories in our province. We had a blue ribbon panel a few years ago, which basically told us that our inventories that are very important to making decisions are not perfect. We need to invest in them and improve them. That's happening, but it's going to take a while before the fruits of that labor come to bear and allow us to make better decisions. I think, though, that basically what I know is that the old forest typically is the most valuable component of the forest. The managed forest that we have grown up from logged areas and wildfires, they tend to will be harvested at a much younger age. They won't be as valuable per cubic meter as the old forest. So we're taking out a significant portion of the value of the forest. And I think that what I have seen is that government has done some quick analysis about the jobs that are allocated to a cubic meter based on averages. And I can tell you that's not going to the way this goes. BC is in the highest cost jurisdictions in the world for harvesting. And so when you remove some of the most valuable timber, by definition, you are going to not only take out that timber you're removing, but you're also going to remove other economic opportunities for a wider swath of timber. So I feel like I don't know what the answer is in direct impacts, but it's probably quite significantly more than government is estimating right now. And until we get down to a more fulsome analysis of what this really means, it seems like it's a large decision to be making without adequate analysis to support the pros and the cons of this.
Man, that was so interesting to hear from a professional forester. 99% of that I had no clue about. You just hear the sort of extremities, the protesting and the everything. Excellent. It provided some direction. Where do we go from here? Wouldn't it be great to see an end to the war in the woods? But we'll just have to wait and see.
There's a lot of gray area, John. There's a lot of things that you think of, as you say, that are seen as black and white or portrayed that way, and they're not.
Right? And First Nations input doesn't sound like that's happening or being given a chance to input, right?
And the First Nations, I mean, they own a lot of sawmills, and they have a lot of their folks working in the industry in various capacities. They've got a lot at stake in this. And we're going to hear a final verdict, I expect, with hopefully a little wiggle room to come on the future of old growth. I think everyone really would like to see old growth forests thrive, maybe in a more balanced way. We can have an industry that moves forward. You'd like to think that's possible. Will the Fairy Creek protesters ever be fully satisfied? Who knows? But let's move on now to Stew Young.
Absolutely. Stew is the long-term mayor of Greater Victoria's, BC's, arguably Canada's fastest growing and most dynamic communities. He's a colorful guy, has tons to say. Let's zoom him in. And now joining us in the Victoria Rumble Room for the first time, and hopefully not the last time, is Mayor Stew Young. Boy, I don't know how many times we've chatted. We've worked together in so many different ways for the better part of, gosh, Stu, 40 years. Oh my gosh. So no shortage of things to talk about, but let's start with a question that's on the minds of I think a lot of community people that have watched the growth of Langford over the years, and you're the fastest growing municipality in BC, if not Canada. And now there's a little bit of opposition. There's a few critics arising who are saying too fast. What are your thoughts about that? How do you embrace that within your development plans for the city?
Yeah, well, people have to recognize where we came from 30 years ago. Langford was called Dog Patch. Unemployment was 20%. We had no real businesses here. So when you grew up out here and you wanted a job, you didn't certainly get that job in Langford. So, you know, all the mills shut down. Everything that was good employment out here was gone. And so, you know, am I going fast? No, I'm actually going at the pace of what the market is driving. This is a family community, and families want to live out here in Langford now. Housing is affordable. I got the lowest taxes in the region. And, you know, and we do amazing stuff with recreation. So your kids have something to do. So they're not sitting around on video games all night long and all day long. So we've got things that this is a happening place, you know, and that's by design. We purposely have been working on this type of community for 30 years. It's not something that just happens. You have to work hard at what you're doing as a politician and make sure that you look at what's best for your community. And that's how we base our decisions. So if it means that we're going to take, you know, parts of Langford that were dumpy and, you know, no services, no sewer, no water, and bring sewer and water and do all that stuff and bring in the economics of it, where you build a community that has to be economically viable. So you got to have all those services, and that's what Langford's done. We've made it accessible for business to invest in Langford. We get the benefit of that of taxes. We get the benefit of street lights and sidewalks now, and people don't understand. 30 years ago, we had one small sidewalk that was on Goldstream Avenue, and to look at the many kilometers now of sidewalks we have, you know, we're doing everything we can to make this the safest community. We don't defund police. We don't talk about that. We talk about getting more police, making sure our community is safe for our families, making sure that, you know, people in Langford, they say, oh, well, I never used to lock my doors, but I hear all this stuff going on in the region. And, you know, so times are changing, and it is time for politicians to get tough on crime and to make sure that we have the resources to do it. Not like what Victoria is doing, where they talk about defunding. Some of those councillors are way off base. That's not what community people want to hear. Your community wants to hear. They want a safe community. They want to be able to walk to a business, walk the streets, and not be harassed or, you know, have any problems that, you know, make it difficult for them to raise a family and be safe in their community.
So Stu, you're talking about police. We're going to jump ahead and ask a question about that. There has been some new talk about a regional police force, how people from all over the South Island go to the downtown, which is why Victoria has to deal with so much crime and why the numbers have spiked there. There's been suggestions, why don't we have a more regional approach to our policing? How do you feel about that?
Well, my job as a politician, I'm the mayor of Langford. I'm trying to make Langford the safest place and make sure I fund police properly. I don't want to be in a partnership with other municipalities that don't take the same approach that I take on public safety. I will spend the money on police officers, RCMP officers. If I need more RCMP officers, I will do it. If it costs a bit more on the taxes to keep my community safe, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to, you know, take money and put it in other places that it really isn't required or isn't as important as policing. So policing is number one. Our community and our council has said that public safety is number one. And so that's why we have to address the concerns of our community and make it safer. So other municipalities, we amalgamate or, you know, talk about policing, that we amalgamate all the police forces and have one. Well, then I'm at the decisions are not Langford's anymore. They become City of Victoria decisions, who has more people. And I don't like their policing decisions. I'm sorry, I don't. So I am not going to partner with the City of Victoria. So that's the thing that I can do as the mayor of Langford. I can actually direct the resources where it's required, and I don't have to ask permission from other people around the area. I actually deal with things, you know, quickly, and we make sure that we try and have a solution right away, and we don't drag it out for 2 years and watch more damage occur. We need to make sure that we are, you know, nimble and quick and be able to put resources where we need to and make sure we have enough money, which fortunately my council has said we will fund policing we will not defund policing. We will overfund policing if we have to make sure our community feels really safe. So that's the problem with amalgamation all the time of all these services. If you don't have good politicians on the other end in other areas actually thinking the same way you are, then you're not going to solve the problem. It doesn't work.
So still within the same theme, but on a different subject, there's been amazing developments going on in Langford on retail, housing, sport, everything. Yep. And one of the unique benefits of working with you, your council, with your municipality, is the quick development process by which you approve things. Now, other municipalities take months and months. So why are you able to do things so differently? Why can't everyone else do it that way?
Well, you got to have the people of your community want to have a job. If you don't want a job, then I can slow things down. If you don't want to have an economy, then I'll slow things down. You want house prices to go up because we're not building new houses and we're not doing supply and demand. Well, then you're not going to have a very good community, are you? You're not going to have businesses want to come to your community. Right now, I've got a lineup of businesses that want to come to Langford because they know there's a strong workforce out here. The residents of Langford are hardworking people. They know that they have to work for a living. They're not asking for handouts. They don't come to me, my residents go, oh, Stu, you should be paying for this, paying for my cell phone or my stays, you know, or whatever. You come from across the country and you say, oh, you're homeless. And then you get into the situation where we already got a homeless problem. You're just adding to it. And you can't manage what you got. And you should look at the percentages. If there's 3,000-4,000 homeless people in an area like the city of Victoria with 80,000 people, well, I wouldn't be saying that you're going to solve the homeless problem anymore. That's just inviting everybody to come to Victoria. Don't ever say you'll never solve the homeless problem, because you know what? Every time you tell somebody you're solving the homeless problem, more people are going to keep coming and coming and coming, and you're going to go end up buying more hotels. Now you got a shortage of hotels. Your tourism industry is going to start to, falter. All these repercussions that happen. It's something that your community has to look at and say, what do we want to go and what direction do we want to go in? And there just doesn't seem to be any clear vision of the municipalities around the region, where this municipality, and some are good, but I'm just saying that there's some that are not, that don't understand economics. They don't understand that it's really important for your people living in, say, Langford, to have a job. That's one of the most important things. We're not trying to attract people that don't want to work and get government handouts in Langford. I believe in a strong community and economy is based on everybody contributing and everybody working hard. And it's our job as politicians to make sure we reward the people that actually get up every morning when they don't want to, and it's tough, but they get up every morning and they go to work even though they'd like to just sit back and relax and do nothing too and just wait for the government to help them.
Stu, I wanted to ask you again, just to pull it back about some of the specific developments that are underway. I mean, you go out to Costco and it's just a construction zone out there on that hill. There's so much work going on. We have the big box stores already. There's a lot more that's going in. You can see a lot of residential housing is going in. Improvements planned for Goldstream, that's underway. That Belmont area, it's amazing the amount of work that's going on out there. And now the land at Western Speedway is going to be totally recast. Western Speedway's moving away, and that's going to be developed. It's right on the border of Highlands. I guess my question is, how do you find all the people to work on these projects? For one thing, it seems to me there's a shortage of working people to build and do construction all over the capital region, but there seems to be no shortage in Langford. And also, are you in negotiation with neighboring municipalities? How much cooperation goes into some of these bigger developments that are right on the doorstep of Highlands or Colwood or even Machosa?
Yeah, so what we did is we have a regional growth strategy, and our urban containment boundary is exactly what we're working in. And so everybody's aware of that. Every single municipality has their own. So we just worked within our urban containment boundary that we have. And, as I said earlier, if we don't do what we're doing, there will be less jobs in the region. Fortunately for Langford, you talk about all the work that's going on. It's because we actually have an open door policy, and we're saying we're solving the jobless problem. So we're not going to solve the homeless problem. We'll solve the jobless problem. You want a job, you come out to Langford, you get a job. There's your opportunity that we provide. And we work hard at that as politicians, and we make sure that, when a business comes to Langford, we roll out the red carpet, any new businesses that come out here, because we know that's a benefit to our community and to the people that are living here that want a job. So before, we never had that. I go back 30 years, there was nothing like this going on. You got to be proud of like what's going on here. Like Langford is a much better place than it was 30 years ago. I lived out here all my life. I know what's going on, so, when we in 78, 79, 80, all of my brothers and sisters, they all left Langford to go to Alberta, places like that for jobs, because there was no opportunity here. So families got broken up, and they would, end up having their kids moving away. And it's actually much nicer for the family to have their kids close, as they grow up and they raise their families and their grandchildren. So we're trying to build a community for families out here and give them that opportunity. So it's not just about coming out to Langford, buying a house and not getting involved in our community. We have hard-working people in Langford. They work very hard. We have a great workforce, and we're very fortunate because along with a great workforce comes the jobs and the investment in Langford. So we're actually doing really well, making sure that the people out here can get a job and actually go buy a house too, because we have affordable housing out here, because we're building more supply than anybody on this island for single family homes. We're going to go into condos now. We're going to go into more townhomes, just to make sure that everybody has an opportunity for home ownership and creating equity in our community, so that they have something at the end of the day. Instead of paying just high rents, you're going to be, getting into homes.
So Stu, our bazillion listeners, of which are across the universe, okay? They want to hear the answer to the following question. And I have to ask, because we've been buddies for quite a while, are you going to run for mayor again next year?
I don't know how to answer that question.
He's learned.
No.
Yes, and there's
I
no.
never, every single year, like when I first got elected, I wasn't going to be really doing much more than one term or two terms. I was on the committee that we worked at making Langford a municipality when it was an unorganized area, and to make Langford a city was one of our biggest pushes. And we got that done, and then I thought I would hang around for a little bit just to keep things going. And I'm still here 30 years later, but it's important that we all work hard, even as politicians, and grow our community. And there is some pride involved in making sure that we can make the changes for the better, changes for the majority. There's always the minority that are going to disagree or whatever, and that's fine. That you're allowed your opinion in life, but what we're doing in Langford is we're trying to look after the majority, making sure that we're providing the proper services for them, making sure that they have opportunity, making sure they have recreation for kids that are top notch. And we have some of the best recreation. I don't care what anybody says, in Langford, for a town of our size, we've got some of the best recreation anywhere in Canada. And that's why these teams, the national rugby team is here, the cycling team is here, the tennis team is here. These are all national teams that
And
are
that's where
here.
that's in
Soccer
fact
team.
where you and I worked a little bit together on that. Is involved with building this extraordinary recreation infrastructure, sport infrastructure. Now, potentially as a legacy, potentially now here looking forward a little bit. Are you intending at some point? I'm sure you have already started to sort of do the equivalent for the arts and culture community and building out sort of that side of things for your city and for your residents?
Yeah, so there's been a bit of a plan. We had to get our infrastructure done, put in our sewer, water. We've got great schools now working with the provincial government up there by Costco, where you see all that development happening. There's a school going in there as well.
Wow.
So we're actually working really well right now and getting the things that our community needs. So we'll have 4 new schools here in the next 2 years opening up, which is great. We had years of no schools, and now all of a sudden, people are recognizing that we've got a lot of families out here. This is the youngest demographic probably in BC is actually in Langford. A lot of young families, people moving here and getting the jobs that are available for them. And so, we're working hard to make sure that we're working on everything. We did 15 years of building up our recreation. Now we're moving into arts and culture. And university, hopefully. So we're hoping to get an announcement. We've been pushing the university now for 15 years. Now we're focused on that, and we're working with the government on that. Hopefully we'll get an announcement of a new university in downtown Langford. Council has been working on it, and we have the drawings and stuff done up for a brand new theater downtown, right, hopefully beside where a university we hope is going. We're going to be putting in a theater, a 1,400 seat theater right on Goldstream Avenue, right in our downtown core.
Stew Young, what an interesting guy. We could have talked a lot longer, and I'm sure we'll want to get Stew back again in the new year to talk even further about his plans, including whether he's going to run for mayor. I gather he hasn't quite made that decision yet, but we'll stand by. And Langford is transforming itself, and it seems every time you go up there and take a drive around, there's new construction. So it's something to see. And speaking of new development, how about the Old Town in downtown Victoria? It is transforming so rapidly now. And in the middle of this transformation sits one of the real marquee businesses in Greater Victoria, that being Capital Iron. And next week we have from Capital Iron Mike Black on the show to talk about his flagship and how he views what's going on in the city and the issues, and of course the transformation at his doorstep.
Robin, Mike Black was on the board with us in the the chamber board with us in the mid 2000s. So we got an understanding of retail, of, as you said, this flagship business in Victoria. And he'll be chatting with us next week about the ups and downs of the retail business. I mean, that's yet another entire industry that's being plagued by supply problems, obviously online buying and Amazon. And we need to hear from him how he's doing and how retail will be doing in Victoria over the next half dozen years.
It's important that we hear from business people about their perspective. We've heard from other business people downtown like Howie Siegel, and we had Gary Beyer, computer industry, well regarded, and had lots to say. This is important that we be able to bring in these different voices to talk about the future of the city as how they see it and how it affects them. So, John, we're close now to the wrap up again, and we want to talk about how people can follow the show and support the show and like the show. So if you want to just go through that very quickly, I would appreciate it.
Boy, have they ever, like, man, people like what we're saying. People like what our guests are saying. And you can do that by joining us on Facebook, joining us on Twitter, joining us on YouTube, which is where all of our videos are housed. Join us on Instagram. And lastly, if you're kind of a little bit out there, a little bit TikTok. Exactly. And you get to see Robin and I a lot. You join us, and I think that's just such a pleasure for everyone. Hey, at our age, we gotta take the compliments, create them ourselves. Anyway, I'm the Croatian sensation. My name's Johnny Jurisic.
And sensationally, I say, I'm Robin Adair, and rumble on.